Mark Foster and Leslie Fage. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest from members in relation to both disclosable pecuniary interests and non-pecuniary interests. So are there any pecuniary interests? No. Any non-pecuniary interests? Councillor Strawn.
Item 16A.
16A. And Councillor Bond. Yep. That's fine, thank you. Item 3, Town Mayor's announcements. So I have 2 announcements. Firstly, to welcome our new Head of Finance, Rob Young. Rob joined us after a good career in the private sector, and we welcome you to your first role in a council. We've already been in a couple of meetings together, and you're already getting to grips with some of our finances. So very welcome to the council, and we look forward to working with you over the coming months and years. Also, just an update to members on proceedings and the way some of these meetings have been running. So you'll notice that there are no planning documents on the board this week. We're going to try this because it takes up quite a lot of staff time. So just for future reference, if you are able to look in advance, I think it would be to your benefit rather than having our staff take up a lot of time printing out applications on the board. I know there are only 2 this week, but sometimes there are in excess of 12 or 13, and it is quite time consuming for our staff. Those are the only updates I have as Mayor. Councillor Russell, you have a couple of updates.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My first update is access for all. There was a meeting of the working group on the 15th of July. So the group is chaired by our MP, Richard Fuller, and we met here at the Town Hall on the 15th. The Network Rail Investment Authority has approved the scheme, and the contract will be awarded this month for work to start in October. But because there is a limited pot of funding and costs have increased, Network Rail have reduced the scheme at Biggleswade Station to save £582,000. We were told that this was to allow other schemes in this phase to go ahead. But it's now planned that the new bridge will only have lift access to the platforms. Both flights of steps have been removed. This will still allow access for wheelchairs and buggies, but will not remove the congestion at the steps on the northbound platform when trains arrive, which is a safety hazard. And moreover, the current steps are inadequate and without handrails. Concern was raised about the hours that the station would be staffed and whether the lifts would operate outside of those hours. Network Rail will report on this at the next meeting. Since the meeting, representatives of the Access for All group have written to Network Rail asking for the steps on the northbound platform to be reinstated. So not asking for both sets, but asking for the steps on the northbound platform. It's still expected that the new access will be completed by next June. The plans for the toilets have been changed yet again because of the discovery of a cesspit in the wrong place. There will now be 2 accessible toilets, male and female. It's not clear whether the toilets will be available when the station is unmanned because of security issues. The transport interchange is still on course to be completed next spring. Detailed design work is complete and the construction drawings are being prepared. There'll be a groundbreaking ceremony on the 26th of August, and the next meeting of the Access for All group will be immediately afterwards here at the Town Hall. Discussions are beginning with bus companies about future routes and layovers. Town Council officers need to be part of those discussions to ensure that the Council's views are considered. It was recommended that the Council engage with Lisa Wright and Jade Jones from Central Bedfordshire Council. Moving on, I attended the sod cutting ceremony for the electricity substation on the 18th of July. Thinking I was early, I got to Dunton Lane only to find it closed by the contractors working on the new mast which is being installed. After a long diversion via Sutton, I just made it on time. Others had the same problem, which delayed things somewhat. After coffee, networking and a detailed health and safety briefing, given the proximity of high voltage cables, the usual photos were taken with spades in the ground. And finally, a quick update on the neighbourhood plan. There was a meeting last week with Central Bedfordshire Council and our planning consultant, Dave Chetwin, to discuss the final amendments to the plan after the examiner's report. We await the final draft and still hope that the referendum can take place on the 15th of September. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Item 5, Item 4, public open session, to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council through the chairman pertaining strictly to matters listed on this agenda. Each speaker needs to give their name and state which point on the agenda they'd like to address the council over. Each speaker will have 1 3-minute slot. Would anybody like to address the council at this point? Yes, please, sir. Would you come to the microphone, state your name and which item you'd like to speak on, and then please do go ahead. Is it switched on? Try again.
Mark and Skip.
There we go, we got you.
Yeah.
Can hear you in Sandy.
Quite, Start again, yeah. Mark and Skip here representing Biggleswade FC regarding the agenda, recreation and leisure.
Is this regarding item 5? Item 5.
Item 5, yeah.
That's right. Okay. Carry on.
I'm here today to highlight the lack of recreation and leisure facilities in Biggleswade. Around 2005, there was a master plan for Kings Reach, Biggleswade, signed off, which included considerable leisure provisions and recreation for football facilities being part of this new development. I believe the land earmarked for these leisure football pitches on the master plan is the land near Edward Peak School, which is now up for planning. However, all these years later, as a town, Biggleswade is still awaiting leisure and recreation facilities. I understand that at the beginning of such a large development, developers prefer to build and sell properties first before looking at their obligations. However, 15 plus years later, and with hundreds and hundreds of houses already in Kings Reach being built and sold, I think it's time now that obligations and agreements on leisure and recreation are met. Following a United Kingdom census report in 2011, Biggleswade's population was 16,500. It was estimated that by mid-2019 this would increase to 21,700, and in an article dated in June 2018, pre-COVID I may add, it was reported that with further housing schemes being planned for the area, growth was expected to be over 24,500 by 2021. This would be a potential increase in 10 years of 50% from the census figures of 2011. To compare Biggleswade's population with two local towns, Stotfold and Flitwick, who are also in central Bedfordshire, Stotfold's population as of 2020 is a third of Biggleswade's. They have 70 youth football teams, and Stotfold has recently had a new purpose-built football stadium and football pitches to the side built, and there's also a full-size 3G all-weather surface area on a separate site at the local school for training purposes in the winter. Flitwick's population is 14,000 as of 2022, and they have 60 youth side teams, and they have a purpose-built football centre as well as a leisure facility in a separate site. Both towns are smaller than Biggleswade, and yet both have far better facilities for leisure and football than Biggleswade currently has. Biggleswade, along with other local parishes, have a circle of 60 youth sides. However, due to the lack of facilities, all these local sides have to travel to Cambridgeshire, Hertfordshire and other areas of Bedfordshire to train, and this information has been provided from an FA Local Football Facility Plan Central Bedfordshire report. The Football Association has highlighted Biggleswade as their #1 ranked priority to provide additional playing and training facilities. Being part of Biggleswade FC, we have had numerous meetings with the CEO of Bedfordshire FA, Alan Young, and he has informed us that the Bedford FA currently has funds available to help towards any new facility due to the highlighted shortfall in both training and playing facilities in the Biggleswade area. Stratton School are currently involved in discussions regarding 3G or weather plane surface facility to be built at the school, and even if this is successful, the town will still be a shortfall in the area based on the survey completed by the FA, who completed a survey and study report 2 years ago. We are aware there was already a shortage of leisure and facilities before the Kingsreach and Biggleswade East development commenced, and in my opinion, this needs to be addressed before further developments are agreed to ensure developers' obligations are fulfilled. Biggleswade needs land and space for leisure facilities, which, after all, was agreed on the original master plan when signed. My question today to Taylor Wimpey and the council is, what are you proposing to do with the lack of leisure, recreation and football pitches in Biggleswade based on the original signed master plan, as the town continues to grow at an alarming rate?
Thank you, Mr. Inskip. Thank you. I'm sure we will get into discussions around some of that. I think that's heard loud and clear, and we can discuss that in a few minutes' time. Would anybody else like to address the council at this point? I'm not getting any indication, so we will move on. So item 5, invited speaker. For members to receive a presentation regarding Site 4 of Kingsreach from representatives of Taylor Wimpey South Midlands, Nai Mughal and Susanna Oates. So welcome to Biggleswade Town Council. Have we managed to sort out the presentation, Sian? Are you okay to share that on the screen? Perfect. If you're okay to use your microphones, please, just that way we can all hear. The acoustics are not brilliant, and it means it will be picked up on the camera as well. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, everybody, members of the council. My colleague Susanna and I are here to update you and give you a background on our proposals for the balance of the site known as Kingsreach. We refer to it as Site 4, and I'll pull up a plan later on just to give orientation of where the site is. As you can see, site. Oops. Is that on? Is that on?
Yes. Is this the right document?
Yeah. No. It was just the blank.
Oh yeah. Just ignore the black thing on the screen. Sorry about that. We've been working on it, but not hard enough. Sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
Just a brief overview of our proposal. We're proposing 353 quality mixed-size family residential homes, of which 30%, 139, will be affordable, and 35 of those will be self-build. The gross area of the site is 32.6 acres. The net developable area is 21.85 acres. Providing additionally 10.8 acres of public open space, including children's play areas, improved biodiversity and ecology. Forgive me, this is going all over the place. So the background to our proposal. The background to our proposal. Outline planning permission was secured. Outline planning permission was secured for the whole of Kingsreach in 2006 for 1,600 homes in line with the housing allocation. Sites 1, 2 and 3 are built and in the process of being built out. And those units were a joint venture between Martin Gerard Homes and Taylor Wimpey. Site 4 at the time could not be progressed due to the very complicated land assembly involving several separate landowners. And this has now taken some 15 years to negotiate a way forward, which we have now successfully done. So Site 4, the update, we're now progressing that to deliver the balance of the original housing allocation made up of the 1,600 units. Taylor Wimpey are now the sole owners and will be providing a fully policy compliant and sustainable residential proposal through a full planning application, as the original outline planning application has expired. The proposals will be in keeping with the previous phases whilst still meeting current policies and standards which have changed over the years. We anticipate first occupancy will be end of 2023. Could we have 47, please?
What was that, John?
Could we have,
Just sharing.
so this is allocation plan, which shows the various sites as we term them. The large orangey area to the south is known as Site 1. We have Site 2, which is then the green area to the west, top northwest. Site 3 is the blue hatched area to the west. And what we refer to as Site 4 is the yellow central area. Just to give you an idea, and that whole allocation is 1,600 units, and 353 of those are within the yellow area. Design go, please. I'm not sure if you can zoom out. So this was the indicative plan at the time when we were looking at the whole site, and just shows you the concept in early 2000s, 2005, 2006. And if we go to aerial with boundary. Again, not very clear. I don't know if this is visible. This is an aerial showing Site 4 itself, which is edged blue. I don't know if that could be made out or not. Thank you.
I think that's clear.
Thank you. So we now come on to what our proposals are for Site 4. 51H, please. So as you can see, we have maintained the principles set out within the original outline permission and followed the road structure. We've retained and provided the long envisaged bus route links spanning north and south to the roundabout and coming in from the east. We've maintained, as I mentioned earlier, 10.8 acres of open space. There's proposals here for a children's play area to the long westerly play area, the green zone there. We're maintaining the existing public rights of way east-south to the south, and also east-west to the south on the south, and east-west on the north. There's also a separate open space area. Some of this space will be for sustainable urban drainage systems. Others will be for play areas, woodlands, ecology, and ecology on this. We envisage a development of 2 to 2.5 stories with 3-story apartment blocks scattered through. The brown areas, brown shading is proposed affordable housing distribution. The site also comes, as I said earlier, with self-build properties, and the blue shaded areas represent the proposed plots for the self-build. All in all, we have tried to maintain as close as possible to the original master plan, bearing in mind that policies such as car parking, highways, carriage widths, fire distances, refuse collection have all changed over the years. But we think we're still within the spirit of what we had originally proposed back early 2000s. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Very informative. And just to be clear, what is the timeline roughly for coming to planning? Because this hasn't been formally submitted for planning.
No, we are currently at the moment still developing the designs. Our engineers are working on subsystems and drainage. Highways are working through those issues, levels. So we are very much in the design stage. But we are keen to submit as soon as we are at a state to do so.
Understood. Thank you. Comments, please, councillors. Councillor Ramsey.
Good evening.
Could you bring your microphone just a little bit closer? There we go. Thank you. There we go.
Can you tell me how many 3-storey apartment blocks you intend to include in this development?
I can do a quick count. 2, 5, 6. I'm counting 7.
Will they be located together or spread through the
No,
development?
they're all distributed across the
Thank
site. We again, through the design and access statement that was submitted with the original outline and subsequent reserved matters. So we've taken keys of requirements there from planning policy.
And the play areas that you envisage, what sort of ages are you talking about?
We're looking to provide a leap, which is pre. Get it right. It's not the younger one; it's the middle one.
8, 9, 10-year-olds, that
10,
sort of
11,
age.
yes.
Okay.
And nothing for anybody that's any older at all?
No muggers or
No
nothing
facilities,
envisaged.
football pitches or anything like that?
No, there were obligations as I believe it, but I'll need to check with you through the 106 for contributions towards that end. But I need to. I'm not 100% sure, and I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors. Councillor Russell.
Thank you. Good evening. I presume your designers are aware of the emerging neighbourhood plan for Biggleswade.
Yes, we are.
And I would hope that you are going to be adhering to the neighbourhood plan, which we hope will be made in September, as you just heard me say.
Mm-hmm.
And it will require better housing than on the earlier stages of King's Reach, if I dare say that. So you talked about family homes, but actually we're looking for a mix of accommodation, units for first-time buyers and for people looking to downsize, and housing suitable for the elderly. We're also looking for access to external green amenity space, private gardens, shared private space, balconies of sufficient size to accommodate planting if there isn't a garden there. So presumably for your apartment blocks, there'll need to be decent sized balconies. And room sizes. We have had an inordinate amount of planning applications in the last couple of years from houses on the east of Biggleswade development where the room sizes are not sufficient and don't cater for people working from home. And of course, lots more people are working from home now. So our neighbourhood plan asks for room sizes to meet or exceed the technical housing standards, nationally described space standards, or that's 2015 or any equivalent. And we're also asking that housing estates should have front courts or gardens to separate the housing from the highway in the interests of amenity and safety. We're also asking for screened storage space for bins and recycling, secure covered cycle and scooter storage, and also high-speed broadband infrastructure. So there's quite a lot there that wasn't required when you put in your plans for the previous stages of this development. And I hope when we get the planning application coming in that it will adhere completely to those standards in our neighbourhood plan. I look for reassurance.
Would you like to comment, or is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Thank you for your comment. As you rightly mentioned, policy and standards have significantly moved on and changed since the granting of the outline permission in 2006. All our developments are provided with bin stalls, cycle stalls. They are compliant with fire hose distances for emergency vehicles. We, as a developer, will be providing Wi-Fi throughout the scheme. We, as a developer, will also be providing electric vehicle charging points. Room sizes, you mentioned, and house sizes. Again, standards have changed and moved on. All homes on this development meet NDSS standards, nationally described space standards. Balconies, I will have a look at the designs of the balconies, and I can't comment on that at the moment. And there's garden sizes are all compliant to planning policy. Private and public spaces are well defined when defensible spaces are defined. And as nearly a third of the development is going to be open space, green space.
Can I come back and ask about the mix of the development, because you specifically mentioned family homes, and there is a need in this area, particularly for people to be able to downsize.
Yeah, we're proposing a mixture of sizes and types of units from 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 5 bedrooms maximum.
How many bungalows are proposed?
We don't have any bungalows currently.
Ah, okay, so that's a little concerning for us, I think, as we age as a population. Demand for bungalows in Biggleswade is huge, and the price of them has gone through the roof, obviously responding to the lack of supply. So I'm not going to speak out of turn. I won't speak for the council. When we see the planning application, we'll see it. But if there's no provision for bungalows, I suspect that's something that colleagues will flag up. Okay. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. There's a couple of points I wanted to mention. So around the play area, the leap that you've mentioned, it's not shown on the plan in terms of where it would be or what size it would be. I don't know if you could give any indication of that.
We're envisaging the leap to go onto the western, larger green space, if you recall the plan.
Okay.
And in terms of size, it will be a policy compliant leap with the appropriate buffer zones, etc., and equipment.
Okay. And then the other concern, as residents mentioned earlier, in terms of previous infrastructure and its usability and what have you. So on the earlier phases, there's playing fields that should be there and in use, but are not currently fit for use. Okay. And the developments are in there for some time and not having the facilities that were promised able to be used by the residents of what is now a much larger town that needs those facilities isn't really acceptable. And I think it's important that any infrastructure like that is delivered and is fit for use. And the other point I wanted to raise finally, you mentioned about bus routes and extending the bus routes. So originally, my understanding is that there was some Section 106 funding to support the bus routes that were put in place. That's now run out, and as a result, the bus services have been significantly reduced. But of course, the effectiveness of those bus routes was not yet there, because the ability for the routes to run the normal route was, for most of that period, wasn't there. The bus gate at the end of Venus Avenue wasn't in use for most of that period. This through route out into the top end of King's Reach wasn't available either. So I would hope that there'll be some provision there to re-establish that bus route, to allow it to operate for a significant period once all of the necessary supporting infrastructure and roads are there.
Okay. Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. In terms of the playing fields, I'm not aware of those issues. I will go back to the office and make some inquiries. Are you maintaining that they haven't been provided, or they have been provided and not been maintained?
Microphone, please. Yep.
I believe they're there, but they're not currently maintained and kept fit for use. I don't know if the clerk can add any.
I think the challenge, if I know a little about this, so I think the challenge is that the green space is green, but it is just green with grass and no real facility around it. There is some children's play equipment in various parts, but when we have football teams and rugby teams, for example, looking to play high quality sport and have to have pitches of a particular standard, when there's no floodlights, no stand, nothing like that, it's the facility itself is not really, it's a field.
But even the pitch, yeah. the field standard is, my understanding, not up to the standard required to be used as a playing surface as well.
Can I bring the clerk in, and then I'll come to Councillor Strawn?
Just wanted to clarify a point. As I understand it, there's when they were built on a bed of flint, and Flint rises and continues to rise, so which makes the playing surface dangerous for usage.
Just Strawn.
Two questions, if I may. First one is effectively a follow-on from the immediate last one with regard to pitches and the leisure areas that don't seem to be fit for purpose at present. Are they actually on parts of the development that Taylor Wimpey, if I've understood it correctly, have dealt with previously, or who are you the owners of that land, or who is the owners of the land? Is that part of the consortium that you were part of?
Do you want to respond? I think it's a consortium. I think it's Taylor Wimpey and Martin Grant combined.
It's the whole of King's Reach, apart from Site 4 now, is a consortium, Martin Grant Homes and Taylor Wimpey. The way we do it, we will partitionise all the residential plots to occupiers, and all the open spaces are either consortium, which are then either handed over to a maintenance company or the parish council or some other entity, which I'm not aware of. I wasn't involved, and I can't find that out. And under that agreement, it would be the responsibility of that entity to look after those under the agreement that we transfer them.
Thank you for the clarification. That may lead to other questions later on when it comes to the planning process. The second part is you announced 139 affordable homes, if I've understood it correctly. What form are those homes going to take? Are they going to be shared ownership, housing association managed, or are they going to be for local first-time buyers? And how is that going to work? Because it's quite expensive around here, and we're not the highest paid people in the world in Biggleswade.
Please respond.
Out of the 134, our affordable housing mix follows the local authority SHLA and their housing need requirements. It'll be a mixture of, again, 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom units. It'll be a mixture of tenants, shared ownership and social rent, and also self-build we're putting in as part of that.
Thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. In the previous week or so, we've had one of our medical doctor surgeries close their books because to new patients, and we've also got one of the local lower schools on the site nearby, very heavily subscribed. What's going to be your contribution to perhaps easing those pressures? Is it just going to be through Section 106, or is it going to be through something else?
Currently, there's no requirement within Site 4 or even within. Well, I'm not sure about the wider. I wasn't involved in that. Certainly with it, Site 4, there's no requirement to provide a doctor's surgery. So I would presume at this stage it would be through contributions via the S106.
Thank you. Councillor Alban.
Thank you. Go back to social housing. So it's 139, I think you said. So what is that in percentage terms?
30%.
About 30%.
30%.
30.
Yeah. So, I mean, can we expect there to be that percentage at the end of the development? Because what normally happens is that we start out with a number, and then that number is progressively reduced in a negotiation process between the developers and the local authority. Can we expect those numbers of social housing to be completed and able to be occupied?
Do you want to reply?
I can give you categorical guarantee that we will provide as Taylor Wimpey the 30% that we have promised. The way our company works on developments, the affordable housing allocation is taken into consideration at a very early stage, and that then translates to how we purchase this site. We always, as a company principal, will deliver a fully policy compliant scheme in all areas and regions that we work in.
Thank you. Okay, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Knight. Actually, would you like to go now?
Just a quick one. Mr. Inskip mentioned the concerns a lot of residents have around leisure facilities. It sounds like your plans for this particular site are quite well advanced. I believe Taylor Wimpey have an interest in other lands in the area, in the vicinity. Would you be willing to work with the town council to identify those other sites and to consider working with us to put leisure provision on those sites?
Certainly open to engage with yourselves. Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, on that, perhaps we could just follow on because, forgive me, I was doing a little research and I went back to the Site 1 planning application, which I have actually fished off the website. Sian, do you have document 2, which I think I shared with you? Could we share that on the screen? You have that available? That's all right. Okay, maybe if I just talk to it and it will come up in a moment. So in the original application for Site 1 and as part of the master plan as well, we saw provision to the east of Baden-Powell Way, as well as on this Site 4 for considerable leisure and recreation provision. Certainly the parcel of land to the east of Baden-Powell Way has not been delivered, and that was within the red line of Site 1 for leisure and recreation provision. Hopefully we'll see that in a moment. But then also on Site 4 as well, for a little bit more. Here we go. Okay, so we can see here, it might be document 3 as well, actually. So we can see here the Site 4, considerable leisure provision. That's the yellow space there, and the proposed development of Site 4 not coming out anywhere near as far as what we saw in the plans a moment ago. I appreciate that things have changed since then. This is quite an important one though, because this is, if you could just zoom out a little bit. So this blue area up here, just off of the north roundabout, this was, if you look down the very bottom, private sports area, that's the key, and it's this dark blue area up the top, and this is within the red line of Site 1, and we haven't seen this delivered yet. So I think what I'm getting at is that we haven't seen the infrastructure required from Site 1 yet, and now we're going to see more proposals for further housing development. Like I say, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I think, to Councillor Knight's point, can we continue this conversation? Because clearly there's a real struggle for this in Biggleswade, and I'd like this councillor and Taylor Wimpey to be part of the solution. Does that sound fair?
Certainly raise this with my colleagues. We're happy to discuss it. May I just say on the plans, those appear to me to be the indicative outline planning permission drawings. The matters that you're raising should have, in my opinion, I would rather hope that they would have been raised at the reserve matter stage, in which case it would have been a legal obligation to actually provide them. So I haven't been involved in Site 1, so I can't say what happened and what sort of negotiations, but ultimately the development gets built in accordance with the reserve matters approval. The outline is a guidance.
Okay, thank you.
Principle.
No, that's fine. Understood. I think we'll probably can draw to a close there, but I fully appreciate, bearing in mind this planning application predates even our planning authority. It was permission was granted under Mid-Beds District Council. So we know that there's a lot of history here, and it's never easy when we're experiencing the growth that Biggleswade is to plan for it and plan properly. But clearly there's still demand and pressure that has been brought by that development. And I won't speak for the council, but if you look at the way that this council has approached other planning applications, also to the east of Biggleswade, it has given support to them in the past, subject to sufficient infrastructure and good design. So hopefully there's space there to have a constructive dialogue. Okay. I'm sorry, we can't bring in, I'm afraid we can't bring in members of the public at this point, but we can continue this dialogue, and I look forward to. Are there any last comments from colleagues? Councillor Russell.
just to reiterate that there is a leisure policy in the neighbourhood plan as well. And it does ask for proper sports facilities. And I'm not quite sure whether what we've just been told is accurate or not about the fact that the issue should have been raised in reserve matters. But I'm not sufficiently a planning expert to really know that, but I do fear that that isn't quite right.
It's okay. We can trawl through some of that detail in due course, I think. This is a start. I hope this is the start of a conversation, not the end of it, because ultimately we do want what's best for Biggleswade, and we appreciate that this site is essentially allocated to an extent and has been expecting some form of development for several years. So that is well understood by this council. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to come and talk to us. Appreciate these are not easy conversations, particularly spanning back 20 or so years, which some of us weren't involved in initially. But thank you ever so much for your time, and we look forward to speaking to you again in future. Thank you. No need to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much. Item 6, members' questions. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Strawn.
Yes, Chairman. When are we going to get rid of this webinar is being recorded in the middle of the screen? It's making we ruined the presentation in that respect because we missed vital parts. So could we please urge officers to get it resolved sooner rather than later?
I'm sure that's been noted, and we'll take that away as an action, Councillor Strawn. Feel free to come into the council chamber anytime and play around with the technology to see if you can fix it yourself. But no, okay. Thank you. Any other members' questions? No. Okay, item 7, minutes and recommendations of meetings. So minutes of the Town Council meeting held Tuesday the 12th of July. We are on page 6 of the pack, and I'm going to go through these for accuracy first of all. So are there any matters on page 6? No. Oh, yes, there are. Councillor Foster, beg your pardon, sorry.
I think Ms. H. Coward is not a construction.
I think you're right. No problem. We will amend that. So that is page 6. Anything else on page 6? Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. I have one on page 10, which is item 80.4. So the resolution should read, it was resolved that the Town Council approves the completion of the following website work. We have a colon, but so there is the work, but then also, and up to the value, and that is up to the value of £1,210, that excludes VAT, with funds to be veered away from the vote heading computer central services onto the vote heading council website. So there's environment in there as well. That's just to complete the minute so that the instruction of staff is clear. And I think that was mentioned by the clerk in the meeting. Is that okay? Yes. No, Councillor Foster.
This is item 2203 relating to the banking signatories. The Head of Governance and Strategic Partnerships and the Town Clerk. I think the wish was it would be either or, not both. And it doesn't make it clear, and I think we should make it clear.
Understood. So the signatories would be one officer and then however many councillors, but more councillors and officers. Absolutely. Correct. Okay, is that accurate, Peter? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll get that as well. Still for accuracy then, please. So page 11, page 12, page 13, Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, on 0084.3 under the Twinning Association, there just seems to be some extra words have crept in. There is still some funding available on the Twinning Association, then it says vote heading. And it was recommended. I don't know what the vote heading is going to do with anything. So it just seems to have been.
Don't think it has anything to do with
it. We just get rid of vote heading. The rest of it then makes sense. But yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Your microphone, sorry.
Number 1 at the top.
Yeah.
Councillor F. Foster does indeed welcome the contact and engagement with allotment holders, but it was actually Councillor M. Foster that said that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Anything else on page 13? Page 14. No. So subject to those changes, are we comfortable that this is a true and accurate record? Would someone move that, please?
Move it.
Thank you. Right. Item 8A. So we're going through the same set of minutes for matters arising. Any matters arising on page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, which I missed. Sorry, Councillor Russell.
It's my fault for not looking sooner, but actually there's an inaccuracy on page 13, which I should have brought up. I wouldn't want it to be recorded. This is in 84.2. It says at the bottom of paragraph, the second paragraph, it would require land being taken from Stratton Upper School to accommodate additional space for walking. That is not correct. We were talking about the grass verge outside of the Stratton playing field, and that indicates that we would actually be taking Stratton land, which is not right. So perhaps we could just say land taken from alongside Stratton Upper School.
Yeah, the grass verge. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about
That's
that.
all right. That's another accuracy item on page 13. Are there any matters arising on page 13? No. Are there any matters arising on page 14? No. Okay, then we move on. Item 9, items for consideration. So 9A, allotments, documents and fees for members to receive and consider a written report from the Head of Governance and Strategic Partnerships and from the Administrator, Karen. So Karen, are you introducing this or Peter? After you, Peter, then.
Oh, volunteer, thank you. So firstly, just a debt of thanks, please. Karim is on annual leave today, so I'm going to present the paper. But thank you very much, Karen, for contributing towards this and the hard work that you've been engaged in. The first thing to say, I think, is that we have been regularly engaging with representatives from the Allotment Association, who I notice are here this evening, and other allotment holders to ensure that the new documentation is entirely appropriate. And we engaged with them, I think it was about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, and we went through the new documentation line by line and offered them the opportunity to contribute towards that. And I think there were probably about 13 or 14 amendments that we captured at the time. So it was a good, positive discussion, which went well, I thought. Having said that, at the same time, one of the key things that we also wanted to do, as well as to offer new policy documentation to members, was to take the opportunity to reflect on the earlier decision connected to future allotment fees for 23. Yep. And my colleague Karim did some more benchmarking with other neighbourhood authorities, and in this particular case stressed the connection between size of plots and cost of plots. Based on the evidence on page 17 that's provided, the conclusion to that work, which was well informed, I have to say, also by the Allotment Association, who've done their own research, was that it was more sensible and appropriate for the allotment fees to not increase, but to remain the same for the current year. That seems sensible based on the information that was provided, and is then consistent with other councils. At the same time, concluding on that research, officers were made aware that some other local town councils also offer concessions for pensioners, students, and those individuals who are claiming benefits. And one of the options that is offered to members this evening, and it is an option, is to recognise that and to perhaps make allowance for that in any future fees. We do recognise, however, that there is a gap in our knowledge base, and at the moment what we do not have is any sophisticated digital imagery of our allotments. And I think going forward it would be of great benefit for us to make sure that we have a proper analysis connected to that, so that we properly understood size of all the individual allotment places that are currently in existence. So that's one of the things that we'd like to do going forward. So in effect, there are 4 recommendations which are detailed at the bottom of the page. Number 1, obviously, is that the policy terms and conditions are approved as described and in consultation with individual allotment holders. What I also should stress is that in our regular monthly engagement, what we're also doing is we are sharing progress connected to the audit of allotments that took place, and I think the 10-point plan connected to that. And what Karen is also doing on a regular basis, I think, is sending out comms to all allotment holders to give them some reassurance that we're keeping on top of that, because we are committed to making sure that that's implemented. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So Councillor North, you're Chairman of Public Land and Open Spaces Committee. Would you like to speak with your microphone on?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, this has been going around for quite a while now. Now, we are very close, I think, here with this document to a final document that we can that is usable, can be accepted. I hope people are not getting too many detailed comments on it. I would just like to make 2 points. One is this issue of concessions is new. It's appeared out of nowhere. It's never been discussed before. We don't do it at the moment. Certainly has never been discussed at PLOS. And it seems to me unnecessary and simply adding to the complexity of the administrative process and really basically wasting officers' time when we are in need of more efficiency. That's what we should be looking for, not less efficiency. And the other point of detail, in terms of under the section end of tenancy, there's a piece that said, if the rent or any part thereof is in arrears for not more than 30 days, which I believe should be, is in arrears for more than 30 days. So the not needs to be taken out. And that's all. I assume you'll want to take the recommendations in order, so I won't make any proposal at the present time, but welcome other comments.
Okay. We can certainly take the recommendations in order if necessary. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So generally, there seems to be a trend on officer reports to have multiple officers named at the end of them, and I don't like that trend, and I've said that privately, but I'm not going to say it publicly. I think a report should have a single accountable author, and one of them here does, 2 of them don't, and it makes it very hard to know who to speak to if you want to follow up in the short window we have between when the pack is issued on a Thursday and the meeting on a Tuesday. So I hope the clerk will consider that, please. Of course, the reason we're in this position is I recall as a council, we accepted officers' recommendations to increase fees based on an earlier report. The clerk's gone some way to explaining what's changed. That's great, thank you. Alas, the report doesn't explain what's changed. And I think it would have been helpful had the report said that. In terms of the recommendations for the 25% concession, I agree with the points that Councillor North made. I'm surprised to see that as a recommendation. It's not evidenced. There's no assessment of the GDPR or privacy impact of that. Residents would be required to share a great deal of personal information with the council, and I think there would be a cost and burden on admin, so I don't agree with that. But other than that, I'm broadly in favour of the other recommendations, and I support freezing the costs on the proviso we don't introduce concessions. Just one detailed point on the draft terms and conditions, page 26, paragraph 3. Apologies if this was missed in an earlier revision. So it says here the council is entitled to compensation from the tenant. I think it would be better if that said the council is entitled to recover reasonable costs from a tenant, because generally organisations aren't entitled to compensation. Thank you. I rest there.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. So far we've hit, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Foster. So far we have 2 comments on the detail of the report. So it was the changing of the wording of not up to 30 days
point, yes,
being
and then
30 days plus recover reasonable. Other than that, the report is as it is, or the policy is. Councillor Foster, you were indicating. I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, page 24, subheading advertisements. I think the line would read better if it said the tenant is not to display or permit to be displayed.
Or permit to be displayed, yeah.
Permit.
At the moment it reads not very grammatically.
Thank you.
Opinion.
That's okay. That's okay. No,
and also then moving on to page 25, under enforcement, under informal warning, it says will be contacted by email. Would it, but further down under formal warning, will send a letter. Would it not be better if the informal warning said, will be contacted by email or post if no email address is available? There must be
Yeah,
something.
I'm sure that's fine. Sorry, I'm mindful that we're taking multiple changes to a policy within a meeting, and I appreciate. I'm not.
I
think
had an opportunity to
absolutely
read this version. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, Councillor Foster. I'm just trying to make some notes of them as we go through, and trying to get to a point where we're able to make a proposal in a moment. Councillor Pullinger.
There is no more from me, by the way. You'll be pleased.
No, that's all right. You're welcome to come back in later. Councillor Pullinger.
So mine is fairly straightforward. I agree with most of the comments made by Councillor North, Councillor Knight, and so on. But in light of that, I think we need to amend the policy to remove the section entitled Concessions on page 20.
Should that recommendation fall?
Yes, well, that follows, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fine. Dear me. No, it's okay, but I appreciate this is a complicated proposal where we're seeing policy changes mid-meeting, but that's okay. Councillor Strawn.
Well, in view of the comments, I was unhappy before I came to the meeting about quite a lot of the provisions in here. There are lots of anomalies. And if we just take, for example, the 25% concession, if we were agreeing concessions, there's reference to on page 20 under concessions to up to 50% discounts, and then various provisions as who's eligible. The concessions was quite limited in the main report, but in the terms and conditions, it's not. I don't wish to be pedantic. I don't have any intention of going through and pulling to bits in this meeting the wording in the document. I actually think that it's not necessary, not fit for purpose at this precise second, because I think there's lots of little anomalies in there which have already been highlighted. I think there may be better forms of actual tenancy agreement than the letter arrangements that are there. I have in fact supplied officers with a couple of suggested drafts of tenancy agreements. I think that the one thing that I think we as a council could agree on without any difficulty is the fact that we should leave the rental allotment rent as it is at this precise moment, not the proposed increase that was put forward. And I think that is something that I think we can all agree on, I would hope, without any difficulty. But I do think that it's the wrong place to be going through the minutiae of documentation, where we've all got our own particular views. I don't think it's the right format. So the only thing I'm really happy about at this moment is the limitation, keeping the rents as they are. The other points I think need to come back to, I would recommend PLOS rather than to the full council to go through and highlight, because there are lots of little anomalies in there. And frankly, getting these notes on a Thursday, there isn't really time for it to be properly discussed by anybody.
Okay. We're going to be looking for a proposal in a few moments then. I think we can continue the debate for the time being. Councillor Woodhead.
I'll just make it quick. Councillor Strawn's kind of taken the main point I was going to say, but let's look at the positives. I think it's really great that we're able to freeze the allotment fees at the current rate. I think with all the economic issues and cost issues going on, I think we should be pleased as a council that we've been able to at least freeze those fees for the next year. So, and hopefully that can be supported.
Okay. I'm looking for a proposal, I think. Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, so I'll propose that we accept recommendation 2 and reject recommendation 3, and that recommendations 1 and 4 be referred to PLOS.
Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Knight seconded that. Comments,
so
councillors?
Well, all I will comment is this is it's just kicking the can down the road yet again. You know, we've been working for months trying to get something in. I would certainly have preferred to have a proposal that we accept it as it is and take up the points that Councillor Strawn has made and the detailed points. We look at that as like a second version that we might resubmit to the council in 6 months' time, but at least we've got something to use in the meantime. But obviously that has been preempted by Councillor Pullinger's motion.
Okay. Well, there is a proposal on the table then. I mean, an alternative would be to accept the policy subject to the minor tweaks or bring it back to the next council meeting.
Accept it subject to the minor tweaks But then have another thorough look at it in the light of Councillor Strawn's comments, and maybe within PLOS, and maybe come back.
Okay, well, this motion would need
Later
to,
in the year.
this motion would either need to be withdrawn or fall for that to happen then. So are there any further comments? Councillor Pullinger.
So I've conferred with the seconder. We're happy to bring it back to the next council, the policy back to the next council meeting if with those amendments. But all I will say is, I mean, I would be happy to support it potentially at that point, but we'll have to see what the members' views are as to whether they accept it at that point.
Well,
Excuse me, sorry. You're invited to speak. Councillor North. We need to wrap this up.
We can't possibly bring it back to the next council meeting. That's absurd. We've got this here. It's got to be considered. The next PLOS meeting is in October. So we must count in, if your proposal is maintained and it's voted in favour, we will just have to carry on with the old documentation.
Then
We've got another 6 months.
I think we move to a vote, and if the motion falls, then I'll look to you, Councillor North, to make a proposal. Okay, we're going to move to a vote because we've had a proposal. It's been seconded. So the proposal is that we accept recommendation 2, that allotment fees are frozen at the current rate, but we reject recommendation 3 of a universally applied 25% concession, and then that the policy comes back to the next council meeting. Is that a fair summary of your proposal, Councillor Pullinger? Yes. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those against that proposal, please show. Okay, the motion falls. So we look for somebody else to make a proposal. Councillor North. Sorry, I didn't mean to snap at you earlier, by the way, but
No,
we were
getting. It's all right, Grant.
Councillor
You've got to do
North,
your
please.
job as chairman. You have to keep people in order. Quite right.
Because as long as you need, Councillor North.
Well, what I propose then is that we accept recommendation 1, subject to the tweaks we've talked about, and subject to removing the section on concessions, but with a commitment that this will be revisited and a revised document will be produced in due course. But through we can do that within the context of the next PLOS meeting, which is in October, possibly. But let's leave that open. I would prefer. But just for the sake of moving forward and achieving something, that's all. And then I would suggest we accept, or I would propose that we accept recommendation 4 as well, because this is reviewed and that we should be looking at the annual fees for next year.
Thank you. Okay, is there a seconder for that proposal? That has been seconded. So if I try to summarise, we accept recommendation 2 and recommendation 4 as laid out. So that's to freeze the fees and look at software to analyse our allotment space. That we reject recommendation 3, and that recommendation 1 is accepted subject to the wording changes which were discussed earlier, most notably with reference to everything to do with concessions, because that's no longer a recommendation of the council. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any last comments? No. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Right. That's almost unanimous. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, well done, everybody. And Karen, thank you very much for your work on this. This has not been easy. It hasn't been. You've been on the front line of some decision making, which we'll look at more closely in future. So thank you so much for your effort on allotments and on this policy as well. And congratulations on getting it through eventually. It's good fun, isn't it? Thank you.
Right,
we'll move on. Item 9B, consultation on variation of rail crossing diversion order for members to receive and consider the consultation. Councillor Bond.
Thank you. As I declared earlier, I've got a non-pecuniary interest in this, but I think really it's just the route of the actual path. Only a few weeks ago, we had a proposal to council to vary FP13 because it wasn't along the correct line. I don't know if you recall that came. Now, it's very important that the line of a path is accurately done on a definitive map. Now, I note that Adam's document is dated the 12th of July. On the 14th of July, Network Rail were granted a non-material amendment to move the bridge by 2.65 metres to the east and 5 metres to the north, which clearly is not reflected in this document. So I feel we could, obviously, you could respond to it, but I think really we need look at the plans. They clearly aren't right. They can't be correct. The gantry, the paths, the actual ramps themselves. I know, sadly, they're 3.8 metres wide. There's no way that reflects what's shown in this document. So really, I think if for the consultation, accurate measurements need to be supplied rather than because they're very vague, and we know how important it is to get them in the right place.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Pullinger.
If I may, can I just clarify something with Councillor Bond based on what you just said? Did you just say that 2 days after this, then an agreement was made to move the bridge approximately 1.5 metres east and 4 metres north?
I didn't say that.
That's not
I
what you
said it was 2.65 metres east and 5 metres north.
So it's different than the change that's been proposed in this.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
And I can give you the non-material amendment reference if you want. It's CB 22-01778-NMA. And if you're happy to look on the website, you'll find that was granted on the 14th of July.
Okay, we're looking for, in a moment, I'll bring Councillor Strawn in because we need to think of how we respond then. Councillor Strawn.
Well, it appears to me from the information we've been given, our only response is that we point out to Central Bedfordshire Council that there are these material differences and they need to consider them further and come back with an appropriate further consultation in making sure that they tie together.
Is that a proposal?
Yes.
Is that seconded? That is seconded. Okay, further comments? No, so the proposal is to write back to Central Bedfordshire Council, making clear that these drawings are inaccurate in light of what Councillor Bond has said, and that we need to have reconsultation, and we'll consider that in due course. Councillor Bond?
With accurate measurements.
With accurate measurements.
You can't, I can see looking at those documents, there's no way they're scaled correctly. So we need to know exactly where these paths are. Thank you. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm very comfortable with that. We want the accurate detail.
Okay. Any last comments? No. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous. Item 8C, consultation on new powers to improve road safety for members to receive and comment on the proposed Central Bedfordshire consultation. Road safety. So this is the ANPR camera proposed for Sun Street, which I think is there to pick up on potentially at quite considerable cost, cars going up the wrong way. Councillor Knight, sorry, how the hell did I forget your name? Sorry, carry on. Turn that thing around.
So much better. I'm not the only one who occasionally does that.
Carry on.
So I think this is complete overkill, to be honest. So my short position is, I walk those routes a lot. I have very rarely seen any vehicles going the wrong way after the very short period where the new one-way system was introduced, and it just seems, complete overkill. So I think we should oppose this on the basis it's just not necessary.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Strawn. Further comments? Councillor Russell.
I just feel that putting ANPR cameras in could be the short straw to something else in the future. And I mean, the document says that it's residents who have complained about this, but I'm with Councillor Knight. I really have never seen anything like it. And I've walked round the one-way system quite a lot. So I think it's overkill as well.
Okay. Councillor Foster. Your microphone, sorry.
I have to say that probably on 3 occasions I have met a car approaching me in the wrong way around. And the idea of this is to actually act as a deterrent to stop people going the wrong way around the one-way system. And it does need to be done. It's happened to me at least twice, probably 3 times.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I've not seen it myself, but we've heard that residents are asking for this, and residents are there much more often than we are walking around, people who don't live there. So I'd like to echo what Councillor Foster has just said. I think it's a worthwhile pursuit to put this in, and it is a safety measure. You don't want to meet a car coming the wrong way, and if you're a pedestrian, you're not looking for cars coming the wrong way. So I think it's a significant safety issue.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, I personally don't think it's a deterrent, it's a punishment. People are not going to really know that they're there when they're choosing to drive the wrong way round if they do that. So I don't think it's going to prevent it happening. It just means that anyone who does will get fined for it potentially. But as Councillor Knight says, I've never witnessed it. I'm not aware of any incidents. I've not heard from any residents raising it on social media or anything like that in terms of concerns around people going the wrong way around there. And I think it's frankly something, the money can be spent on something more worthwhile.
Okay. Any last comments? So we have a proposal. The proposal is to write back saying we're not supportive of this because it's not needed. Is that a fair summary of the proposal? Yeah. So we'll take a vote on that, and if it falls, others are free to put a proposal themselves. So all those in favour of the proposal of writing back and saying that it is not needed, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1, 2, 3. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So that is carried. So we write back and say that we object to that. Item 9D, war memorial signage for members to receive and consider a written report from the place shaping manager. Isaac.
Thank you, Chairman. So following a number of instances in which individuals have been disrespectful towards the war memorial.
Sorry, we don't talk over officers. Isaac, or we don't talk over anyone for that matter. Isaac.
Thank you. Officers have sought 3 quotes for signage, which would sensitively ask that the war memorial be respected. Officers are cognizant that the signage procured needs to be of a high quality and standard in keeping with the memorial, and officers are also aware in local towns that have been that similar signage has been deployed and has been effective. So it's therefore recommended that officers work closely with Royal British Legion in ensuring that the council procures 2 quality signs that will be effective in improving the behaviour of a select minority. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Comments, Councillor Knight.
Thank you very much for an excellent report. So I support all of the recommendations in here. Of the choices of wording, it's good to have 3 options. Thank you. So my concern is that option 1 is a little bit too short and the other options are a little bit too long. And I was trying to see if I could come up with a 4th option of wording, which I'd like to propose and to see what members think. And what I was trying to do is create almost an emotional link between the memorial and the memory of those who have fallen, to maybe get people to psychologically be more minded to comply. So I've come up with this wording, which I'll be happy to read twice if members would like me to, but essentially it is: by respecting this memorial, you are respecting the fallen. Children should not play in this area lest we forget. So I'll read that one more time. By respecting this memorial, you are respecting the fallen. Children should not play in this area lest we forget. So may I suggest that's an option 4 for a different choice of wording. Thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for that proposal? Is that a seconding, Councillor Russell? Yeah, okay. Comments? Councillor Woodhead? Oh, go on, Councillor North. Okay, go on. Go on, Councillor. Sorry, I was so rude to you earlier. Carry on.
I think it's a very good point that Councillor Knight is making, and yeah, it needs to be kept short. I just wonder if the wording is just a bit too subtle, and it shouldn't be more direct. Do not play on this in this area or something like that. That's all.
Colleagues will reflect on that. Councillor Woodhead.
Just want to say thank you for this great report, and I'm supportive of the options that have been put forward. I think having a signage in the way it's been described is much more preferable than a sort of cage type approach that some war memorials have in towns, where it's kind of locked away or padlocked and only opened on Remembrance Sunday. We still want to have access and open access, but obviously not people and particularly young children climbing and doing dangerous things on it or whatever, and being disrespectful in the same way. I did have one other suggestion to go with this as well, in terms of raising the I guess, the awareness of the War Memorial, and that's possibly to have some sort of A-board sign that we put out during events that's a bit bigger, because if you've got parents, say at Street Food Heroes or a market or some other kind of event, you would see an A-board at a little bit of a distance, and parents might go, oh yeah, okay, don't go near, don't tell children to go near there, rather than almost having to be on top of the memorial to then see the sign, if you see what I mean. So on a day-to-day basis, that'll be fine, but it's just during events, and maybe the sign could be used for other things, it could be a chalkboard or whatever, or a painted board or something. But I think perhaps an additional thing like that specifically for events days would be helpful, just to remind people.
Do you want to include that in your proposal or not, Councillor Knight? You wanted to speak again. I'll come to Councillor Strawn in a moment.
I'm not that fond on the A board, but I've certainly listened to other members and be persuaded if there's a majority for that. I read out the wrong version of my proposal, unfortunately, so I shared it informally. So what I read was children should not play in this area. A member before the meeting did suggest, rather than saying children should not play in this area, which teenagers may consider themselves not to be children, it should say, please do not play in this area. So the correct version I meant to read out was, by respecting this memorial, you are respecting the fallen. Please do not play in this area, lest we forget. My apologies for the
Oh, it's getting complicated. Councillor Russell, are you happy with that as the seconder? Okay, fine. So we are happy with that. Okay, further comments. Councillor Pullinger. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Councillor Strawn's been sat with. Okay, yeah, sure. Councillor Pullinger.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to get you serious. Councillor Pullinger.
So I just wanted to say I fully support the proposal from Councillor Knight. I just wanted to comment really on the A-board suggestion from Councillor Woodhead and essentially say that I'm not really overly enamoured with that. I think it would clutter the town centre and things during events, and I'm not sure it necessarily would achieve the sort of the outcome necessarily. So I'd prefer not to see that and just to use the plaques that are proposed.
Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. I'm sympathetic to the idea of simple wording rather than complicated wording. I can remember seeing some children playing on grass where they weren't meant to be playing. And I said, well, look at the sign there, you shouldn't be doing this. And it said ball games prohibited. And I was asked, what did prohibited mean? At which stage I just walked away because it's ridiculous. So I think it's important that they just keep it short and punchy that everybody can understand. And I think the reference to no one should play is much better than children, because it does preclude adults who behave like children and getting involved.
Councillor Foster.
Approve the revised wording, not in favour of the A-board.
Thank you. Very succinct. Okay. Okay. Councillor Knight, would you like to just remind us your wording?
So, no A-board, by respecting this memorial, you are respecting the fallen. Please do not play in this area, lest we forget. 19 words.
And that was the option, and just which signage option was that?
Supplier B.
As per the recommendation.
As per the recommendation.
Okay,
and obviously working with the RBLI to agree on placement.
Thank you. So that's been proposed, it's been seconded. Are there any last comments? No. Okay, all those in favour of the proposal, please show. That is carried. Thank you. And thank you for your work on this, Isaac. Now, under a standing order, which I can't remember the number of because I haven't had time to look it up, we have a further item for consideration, which is a recommendation. It's not in the pack, no need to look, which is a recommendation from the Town Centre Management meeting, committee meeting, related to the procurement of CCTV cameras, and equally a recommendation from F&GP about how we source the financing for it. Peter, did you want to speak to this briefly?
I'll keep it very brief and succinct. So there was a meeting of Finance and General Purposes earlier this evening where there was they gave consideration to drawing down monies from our rolling capital fund that currently sits at 71,968. There were two issues that were considered. Issue number one was to allow a sum of 24,927 to be drawn down from rolling capital to ensure that we speedily responded to our CCTV strategy and were able to operationalize that quickly. At the time when I did the update earlier, I advised members that unfortunately the information that had been previously given to them wasn't entirely correct. Part of the funding had been agreed by Central Beds, but there remained a proportion that had not been agreed, and that we needed to finish that and to give them additional information to conclude that conversation. The second element related to the Christmas offer, where there was an opportunity to draw down a maximum allowance of £4,000, which may or may not be used. It may be lower than that in reality. So a global figure of 29 for now, that may, however, potentially get worse, subject to an unsatisfactory outcome with Central Beds.
Thank you. We're showing on the screen, so that was the update on finance, that we are showing on the screen the draft minute from the Town Centre Management Committee meeting to procure option B of 8 cameras. And I think it's just worth noting for Council, Councillor Knight can talk to this, a huge amount of work has gone in behind the scenes, examining the detail around this, originally from the crime working group a very long time ago, to now getting it at a point where it's at TCM, and it's regrettable that we don't have something in writing for this agenda, but obviously speed is of the essence. Councillor Knight.
Thank you very much. So yeah, the TCM meeting, essentially we were asked to consider whether we should reduce the scope of the CCTV system we were looking to procure to match the available funds, which would have meant removing a number of cameras, going down to 5 cameras rather than 8, and TCM unanimously resolved to recommend proceeding with the 8 camera system we'd previously specified and staying with the same UK-made supplier.
Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add, based on the meeting earlier, so it's the agreement made or the recommendation made at the FNGP meeting was to enable the capital funding of this from our reserves, should that be required. But what is very clear is we, as a town council, and our position is and remains that this ought to be funded by Section 106 money. And we put it on record in that FNGP meeting that that is our intended source of funding, but that due to the urgency of placing orders, because of the upward pressure on costs, and also the impact on residents in the fact that there is reported incidents of crime taking place in the town centre that may not have been prevented, but may certainly have been solved if we had improved CCTV coverage. So we need to progress with this, but we still need to use what political routes we can to escalate through the executive at Central Bedfordshire to try and get that Section 106 money released.
Thank you. I think we're looking for a proposal. I appreciate this has been bounced on a few councillors, but Councillor Russell.
If you're looking for a proposal, then I'd like to propose that we go ahead as TCM have recommended with 8 cameras in the mobile unit and the supporting stuff that's needed. And I'd also like to propose that we do use rolling capital as and when it's needed. But I fully agree with Councillor Pullinger that we keep on talking to Central Beds, because we have been told at a senior level in Central Beds that we're entitled to that Section 106 money, and we should be trying to get that to finance the CCTV. So that would be my proposal.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal? There are various seconders for that proposal. Looks promising, Councillor Russell. Are there any further comments? Peter, did you want to?
Just one point of clarification, which I forgot to mention. In my conversation with Central Beds earlier at director level, they were clear that the additional sum that we'd asked for was likely to be declined.
Councillor Russell, sorry. Councillor Russell.
I think that's something that we need to deal with at this meeting.
Yeah.
But that's not an acceptable position.
No, we can escalate that politically. Are we clear on the proposal? Are there any last comments? So the proposal is to go ahead with the recommendation from the Town Centre Management Committee meeting to source 8 cameras as outlined, what was on the screen no longer there, and to fund it through rolling capital if required, but to continue to source as much as we can through Section 106. Is that a fair summary? All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Thank you. That is unanimous. Item 10, accounts. They do exist, but we don't have them on the agenda. Please.
DCK had not been forthcoming with those months' accounts. That's why they're not included.
Okay, thank you. Item 11, planning applications, 37 London Road, works to trees within the conservation area. Any comments? We okay to note this? Thank you. 11B, 32 Short Mead Street, replace agricultural building. Any comments? Councillor Bond.
I should actually declare an interest on that one because the owner's actually my tenant. So I should pick this up.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, Councillor Russell?
No objection, subject to the neighbours, which I think is important in this instance with it being Miller's Court.
Okay, thank you. That's seconded. Okay, so no objection, subject to neighbours, but stressing the neighbours as we have done in the past. Any further comments? No. All those in favour of no objection, subject to neighbours, stressing the neighbours. Thank you. Item 12, planning application outcomes. A report of the planning application outcomes as of 20th of July. Comments, Councillor Knight.
Can we note the report, but there don't seem to be any outcomes for the second meeting in a row.
Okay. Councillor Bond.
I don't know if it's been mentioned, but I understand that the planning application for the Red Lion was actually refused by Central Beds.
Interesting. Good news. Well, this council took a position on it, didn't it? That's nice to hear. Further comments? No? Are we okay to note this? Thank you. Items for information. The Mayor's fundraiser. So the very illustriously titled Mayor of Biggleswade, that's me, will be holding a fundraiser at Biggles Lounge on the 29th of September to raise funds for my chosen charities. So that's St John's Hospice and the British Red Cross Ukraine Appeal. So you'll be receiving an invite very soon. It's an all-you-can-eat sit-down dinner featuring the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley. So I look forward to seeing at least some of you there. And if there's not a big update, we'll open it to the wider community. I'm sure they'll be delighted. Item 14, public open session to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council in respect to any business of the council. Thank you for sticking with us. Would anybody like to address the council? Yes, please, of course, yeah. Mr. Inskip. Are we still on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to me earlier on. My concerns are when I listened to the gentleman who represented Taylor Wimpey, when you look at provisions that Stopfold have had, they've got a fantastic facility, purpose-built stadium, football pitches to the side. The school, Eatonbury's got a full-size 3G playing facility for all weather. If you look at St Neots, which is a local town to here, they've got 3 full-size 3G playing surfaces. If you look at Bedford, they've got 5 with another one coming. If you look at Cranfield, Bloor Homes have just built a fantastic housing development, and Bloor Homes have gone and built a playing facility for football, including a pavilion that Beds FA now use as their way of delivering youth matches, referees, the different standards of.
Sorry, Mr. Inskip. Sorry. I did make a point earlier about people talking about over others, and that does, I'm afraid, apply to staff as well. Sorry, if we could please just wait and listen to what the residents have to say, seeing as they've sat here very patiently. Mr. Inskip, carry on, please.
Thank you. What I'm trying to say is, every other town around here seems to have housing developments, which I understand Biggleswade we need, the country needs. There's a shortage of housing, but I just feel at the moment, Martin Grant Homes, Taylor Wimpey, I know there's another builder at the moment where there's a problem with the land, but they don't seem to be, in my opinion, delivering recreation and leisure facilities. Now, me, Dave and Ben are here for Biggleswade FC. I know there's netball shortage. because my daughter plays netball, so she has to play out of Caldecott and they play their matches in Bedford. Hockey team, there's no hockey team that represents Biggleswade now. My wife played for the hockey side that played down at Fairfield, and they had to move in the 90s because hockey then went onto a hockey surface and not grass. I just feel there was an outside swimming pool and that was taken away and another put in. I just feel all the time Biggleswade is behind the 8 ball, and I just feel now is the time that as a group, as a council, as residents, we have to accept Biggleswade's going to grow. We're going to have to accept that houses are being built. But what I can't accept is these building firms, these construction firms worming their way out of fulfilments, obligations, bamboozling people like myself, people like yourself with legislation, and next thing you know, the houses are built, they've been sold, and they've moved on to the next town, and they've left us holding. I noticed one of you, I think it was Councillor Russell, mentioned that estate at the moment, Dave's 2 sons moved onto it. The parking isn't the best. The houses are crammed in. There's no bungalows. They want to build 3 town-storey houses because the cost is in the ground. As soon as they go up, they can get more money for them. And they just seem to be thinking of themselves, and they're not leaving, in my opinion, a legacy that can be used for future generations. And right now, there's no football pitches suitable for a town that's growing. And when you compare us to Flitwick, who have got, and I think I'm right in saying this, they've had a football facility built on the back of 106 money from Biggleswade. We've got Creasy Park in Dunstable, an unbelievable facility built on the back of 106 money from Biggleswade. You've got the Stopford facility, unbelievable, built by the builders who purchased land and had to put 106 money back into the town. I just feel at the moment we're being let down. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Inskip. I think you are sadly right that we are well aware of the challenges that we have trying to get commitments and get them in writing and seen through from start to finish. And we know that for football provision, particularly Biggleswade is by far the worst spot in the county, given the population that we have and the demand for it. A 3G pitch at Stratton is a start, which we expect at some point, but it doesn't go far enough to meet the challenges which we face. So I think you have been heard loud and clear. Hopefully you felt reasonably well represented by the council in that we tried to have the conversation with the developers here, but that is the start of a conversation with them meeting the obligations that they that they signed up to prior to. Yeah, you can come back in a second, of course. Yeah, please.
We've had major meetings with Alan Young, who is the CEO of Bedfordshire, and the shortage, Biggleswade was highlighted as their #1 priority in the country for lack of facilities. It's that bad when they did the survey, and he has said that there is funding there of up to £750,000 there now for the town of Biggleswade, but we need land, we need planning permission, but it's not to pay for it, it's to contribute to it. So what I don't want is builders and councillors to think, oh, FA can step in and they're there to fund something. And along with that, once land's been secured and planning agreed, they will fund upwards of £750,000. We can then obviously go for football foundation money. We can go for potentially 106 money. So we between us in this room could build a facility, leisure facility, recreation facility. And I'm not talking just football. I'm talking, if it's designed correctly, netball in the future, hockey in the future. I'm talking football because that's my passion, but I'm also looking generically. And that is something that really in 10, 20, 30 years' time, we can be looking at as a legacy of this generation, because King's Reach at the moment, for me, isn't leaving a very good legacy, but that's a personal opinion, not something for debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Inskip. I think that's fair. Yes, in a moment, I will just respond to that. I think the big challenge that we have is it's not just about, we have money ready from the FA, hopefully, but I think the commitment that we need to get from developers is not just about money, but about physical land, because Biggleswade is running out of land. Most of the parish is developed. And so finding the right parcel of land, which I think is what we were trying to nudge in the direction of today, admittedly only the start of a conversation, but hopefully we hope as a council, if I dare speak for colleagues, we hope could have some legs. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Would you like to address the council? So yeah, please, if you come to the microphone, 3 minutes, yeah.
So I'm Ben, I'm on the committee with the football club, also one of the directors of HBC Logistics, which is the main club sponsor, along with Dave here. So there was two things I wanted to try and highlight and try and really ask for some help. The first one's quite simple, really. Me and Mark have been through this process, along obviously with Dave as well in the background. We need someone to help us own this project. We've been let down massively. We've had various discussions about certain options and opportunities. We had a very, very good chat very recently, which was grateful. But we need someone to own this project. We've spoke to, as I say, various different people, and that's what I'm asking for, your expertise in that and your help. The second part is we're a growing business, and it's kind of relevant. We've just agreed, me and Dave, to move our business into Biggleswade, into one of those nice big units that you guys have probably approved at some point in the past. It's one that's already built. I'm also discussing terms with one of the units that is behind the co-op. I spoke to developers there. He tells me there's land. He tells me he would help. He would tell me he would contribute. He tells me there's more units going up. That's only from him. Obviously, you guys know a lot more than me. It seems as if there is options there. Okay. Mark has already alluded to, we've got the Beds FA on side for various different reasons. We've got funding on side. There is serious options for private funding, whether that be from HBC, whether that be from various contacts I have, but we need the land. This football club is in serious danger of not being here in 2 years' time. It's really not, because we're ground sharing with Bedford outside the county again, or outside the town, I should say. You've got 3 extraordinary football clubs in this town, which I don't know the stat, Mark, you may know, but Alan mentioned it. But in terms of step and quality and level, it's unprecedented really in this country. You've got Biggleswade United, Biggleswade Town, and us, Biggleswade FC, playing a very high standard of local football. Please don't let one of them disappear. Now, granted, I will back that up by the success of these 2. They've propelled the club forward very, very quickly, quicker than we expected. Okay, but we need some help with that. So,
thank you, Ben. I think that is noted and heard loud and clear, and this council will bear that very heavily in mind when we think about broader questions around what land is used for what in Biggleswade when we are asked our say. Then Councillor Russell alluded to the neighbourhood plan earlier, which is a really important planning document and will give us great structure about where we want to see certain things happen in certain parts of the town and the standards that we would like to see met. So whilst it doesn't go all the way to allocating land, it provides some guiding principles that give us a bit more clout than we would have were it not to be in place. So I know we have spoken in the past, and I look forward to continuing this dialogue with the council. Hopefully we can bring some of our officers into conversations as well. Councillor Russell.
Yes, I'd just like to say that we hope we will be mentioning football specifically in the neighbourhood plan, but the examiner didn't quite like this being as specific as that. So we're negotiating at the moment, but certainly it was our intention to say specifically that we need the football facilities. I think we all know what your situation is as Biggleswade FC, and we'll do what we can to support you. I think that there are 2 things to allude to. First of all, I looked at the open spaces on the plan that was shown to us tonight by Taylor Wimpey, and I wondered why the spaces were dispersed in the way they are. We seem to be worrying more about biodiversity than leisure facilities, and I think we could ask them to think about that allocation. I'm not happy that we're going to get that far, because you very often don't with these large construction companies, and we've tried very hard in the past and get knocked back even when we think we've agreed things. And I think the other thing that was mentioned was the developers who have brought the co-op to the town, and I think it would be worth us having a discussion with them as well. We've got a good contact there, so we'll do what we can. And hopefully.
Very, very briefly, if that's all right. Do you want to just come to the microphone? Thank you, Councillor Russell.
Yeah. Lost my trail of thought where I was going there. In regards to the facility, the plans that we kind of were advised to draw up, we're not naive enough to think that it's just football. We included netball, we included hockey, we included education, we included function rooms, we included everything that was in there. So, which I'm sure you probably know that, but I just wanted to echo that from the club. We're not just standing here saying, can we have a football ground? No. We understand it's you've got a guy here, Christ, how long have you lived in Biggleswade? All his life, I'm guessing. Someone that's 62 years, there you go. You can tell from the twang of my yeah.
Half his life. No, I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah. So, through all the discussions we've had in the past, we want a facility for the town. Yeah, we actively want, everyone else involved, all the other youth clubs, whatever we can do. And the plans that I was heavily involved in that drawing, which looks fantastic, which is probably going to go in my deleted file now, I'm guessing. It looks great, and it should be showcased really for what it was. The second comment is that contact a Mr. Tom Leeming by any chance? Okay, well, I need to talk to him tomorrow. I did cheekily ask him in the negotiations if he had any land spare. He seemed very forthcoming.
Just a reminder that we are in a public open session, so I'm just urging not to go into too much details about things which are commercially sensitive.
It was very tongue in cheek, and the reason is because the unit we were looking at had a huge, lovely piece of land outside, and I said, "You can put a football ground there." That's as the extent it went. So
okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think all of this is taken on board. I have two councillors indicating. If you could summarise very briefly, and then we're going to move into exempt session. Councillor Russell.
I was just going to say that I'm well aware of the plans that were made and the discussions with Central Bedfordshire Council. And of course, that's another piece of land that's allocated in the local plan. But at the moment, any discussion about development is very much halted for reasons we needn't go into now. But that would have been an absolutely ideal site. And I know the kind of facility that you were talking about. We've just got to look at all of the possibilities and keep that in mind the whole time when we're discussing with developers. Thank you.
Councillor Strong, did you want to comment very briefly?
Very briefly, I was just wondering, to help us to help you, if you could share any of your ideas with us, then we can look at them and work with you to find out what you're suggesting, because I'm sure you've got better ideas, and the councillors are probably well past their sporting days in most respects.
We can open up that channel of dialogue for sure. And thank you ever so much for coming this evening, gentlemen, and for sharing your plight as a football club. You're absolutely right to come and talk to those who want to build in our town, because it's right that they commit to things in Biggleswade which are going to be lasting and are going to leave a good legacy, because sadly we've fallen short of that in the past for whatever reason. And I'm afraid that does predate my time slightly on council. I was 12 years old when Kingsreach got planning permission, but hopefully with this phase we can push very, very hard and get them to meet the highest possible standards. But even if it's not this one, this channel of dialogue is very well open. Thank you very much. Item 15, exempt items. Could somebody move that we move into exempt session, please? Thank you. Okay, let's move in straight away then, please. Thank you.